Hello, my name's Rachel Feuchtwang, and I'm going to be telling you with Paul Clark about a project called Give Me Back My Broken Night. It came about through, where have I got to? Through a collaborative development project called Theatre Sandbox. And you can see here where it comes from. The makers were in fact Duncan Speakman, who sadly isn't here today, but is possibly known to some of you. What I wanted to quickly tell you about was a little bit about the context of where this work takes place within. There's an awful lot of theatre makers at the moment who are working in participative space, who are using, I mean, it's good that we're here in a theatre building now, but there's an awful lot of performing artists and theatre makers who are actually taking the work outside of the black box and putting it into the city itself. So I think it's an interesting point to make within this context of the conference that there's an element of play, there's an element of sociability that artists are using to enable that space in a more playful and inventive way. One of the most important things that I feel very strongly about that makes those experiences pleasurable are the dramaturgical structures that enable those experiences to take place. And I'm now going to hand you to Paul, who's going to tell you about the project.
Okay, hello. I'm Paul Clark from Uninvited Guests, and I'm sorry Duncan can't be here. He's in Japan at the moment. So firstly, I wanted to say, well, where we've stolen our title from. I don't know, people may recognize, but Give Me Back My Broken Night is borrowed from the Leonard Cohen song, The Future. This plays at the end of the event as audiences look down on the present-day streets from the balcony of the Soho Theatre. So, this is what you experience. Participants are given a mobile phone and a blank folded paper map. A micro-projector is hung around their neck. The audience gathers outside the theatre where they hear an introduction which draws on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol and establishes the fiction that the performers are ghosts from future Londons yet to come. Then your phone rings and a performer guides you into the future. In many ways, the performance is like a guided tour of possible futures. The map projected onto the paper in your hands is geolocated and constantly updates as you walk the streets. When you stop and unfold the map, you see a plan of the future of your location projected onto it. This is the text that the performer you've just seen in the last slide is speaking. As a participant, you're taken to vacant lots and buildings under construction, where you're told about what is actually being planned and about imagined architecture. As you walk, you travel further into the future, from 2025 to 2050 to 2100. The starting point for the text that you can see on the screen at the moment was the actual design, the actual plans for the new Crossrail station that will be completed in 2017 on this location. So the stories that the performers tell are like, in a way, site-specific science fictions, which draw on and relate to things that are there in the present place, but transform them and what the participant can actually see. In the dramaturgy, these examples range from utopian to dystopian visions of the future. At one location, which is a different place for each of the participants, you are asked about what you'd like to see there, your ideal architecture or use for this space. As you describe your vision, an artist's impression begins to appear on the paper in your hands. An image of what you are describing is sketched out in real time in glowing lines. The map is altered by what you imagine. So, after your time-traveling journey, you return to the theatre where you meet the other audience members again. And as you lay your maps on the table around which you gather, your individual drawings of possible architectures and social spaces reappear on them, and, projected onto the table together, they make up a collaborative urban design. So the event concludes with this fictional planning meeting, where all the participants describe, debate, and share their futurological visions for the city. Okay. That's what you experience. This is how it works. So the audience members carry a location-sensitive mobile phone running a web browser which is attached to a small projector and mirror that's hung around their neck, so that the image of the browser screen appears on a blank paper map that they hold out in front of them. The phone is also on call to a central base where an artist listens in to the participants' conversations with performers. The artist sketches on a graphics tablet to add to a networked map that the phone's browser displays, updating in real time. So it uses custom-made networked illustration software, but if I'm honest, there's something of the Wizard of Oz about it. So once you're back in the theater at the planning meeting, each audience member's blank map is identified and its position is tracked by its tag. Their individual drawing is projected onto it using a QR code, video tracking, and a projector that's suspended overhead. So I'm going to show you some examples of the drawings. I'll show you some examples of the drawings made by the audience, whilst I also talk about some of the thematics of the project that relate to this Social Cities conference. Hopefully these drawings will illustrate the visions participants had and the impressions they produced of them collaboratively with the artist. You'll see, I guess, a number of new recreational uses for Soho's public spaces, a boating lake in the center of the city, an impossible skyscraper made up of spirals like ribbons, and a rainforest beneath a geodesic dome. The context of Soho was interesting, in part because Soho is currently undergoing considerable change. The Crossrail project is the biggest public engineering project in the UK for generations, and will lead to 2 new stations being built on the edge of Soho, and also a new train line that is being tunneled directly beneath the area we were working in. So our artists' impressions, rendered through drawing, through soundtrack and stories told by the performers, enable audience members to reimagine the urban contexts they dwell in, use, and pass through. The intention was to set up a critical relationship between the located utopian or dystopian science fictions and the city of today, to enable participants to reflect on possible futures and their role in making them happen or not happen. Ownership and authorship of the piece was somewhat democratized, with members of the public having the opportunity. You want to show the video again? I have to start it now. Okay. With members of the ownership and authorship of the piece was somewhat democratized, with members of the public having the opportunity to creatively redesign their environment, to playfully take on the role of urban planners, to take up temporary responsibility and debate the pros and cons of possible future architects. I'm going to show one more slide, and then we'll show the video. So within this event, which overlays real city spaces with virtual or fictional futures, takes place on the streets themselves, on a networked online map, and also within a theatrical frame, public participants are engaged, we hope playfully and enjoyably, in individual and collective placemaking.
We're going to show you as much as we can of a 5-minute film, which will just illustrate how the project actually worked. But while they're fiddling with this and it's coming up, there's lots of potential, obviously, for this project for future development with city planners.
You mean you know harm?
And we'll tell you more about that another time.
We will show you things that have not yet happened, buildings that have not been built, and people yet to be born. We will speak of futures perfect and futures imperfect, of what will be and what may be. Follow us then into what is possible, probable and improbable.
I guess we're trying to show you various possible future Sohos, and you're guided by performers who we like to think of as ghosts of the future. You walk through the streets of Soho with a blank map with a blank sheet of paper. At certain points you unfold that map and you see projected onto it, from a projector hanging around your neck, you see projected onto it a kind of plan, a map of the future.
We've been out on the streets of Soho. We've had miniature projectors on a string around our neck. We've been taken by a performer through imagined visions of the future of Soho.
You see a future that's kind of made up of the best of the past. You see a future that's actually planned, and you also wander through a much more dystopian future.
Opposite us here is a two-plate glass and steel structure.
We were asked to describe our own imagined vision for Soho, and as we described it on this tiny projector held by our chest, suddenly this image appeared.
So after the catastrophe that was the 2012 Olympics.
As they're walking, the map updates its position through GPS, so as you move through the streets it constantly shows you where you are. But it's not a traditional map. We've worked with an artist, Sam Steer, who's created us a sort of sketched vision of London with some of our sort of visions of the future.
We have...
Just to conclude, whoops. Just to conclude, of course, this was a piece of a prototype or a theatre project that came out of a development space which was very limited. But the potential for doing this again and doing it in more interesting ways and further is quite substantial. And in particular, I think that Uninvited Guests and Duncan Speakman are very interested in seeing how they can work in collaboration with cities and with city planners to actually look at what could be done, that the benefits are not just theatrical and arts-based, but are actually, go beyond that. Exploring new contexts, uses and outputs. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Rachel and Paul.